Hello guys, in this video I'm going to show you all how you can automate the process of creating and launching email campaigns using the platform called ActiveCampaign and using their API. The main purpose of this video is to walk you through how to work with the ActiveCampaign's API and demonstrate some real-world examples and use case of automating email campaigns to build stronger, smarter customer relationships. Alright, so this is the make.com scenario that I'll be showing you all to demonstrate the API. So I'll be explaining only about ActiveCampaign, so that doesn't mean that you only got to do it over there. So you can use it in any other alternative platforms by using the same concept. So these are some of the use cases that I'll be showing you all. So I'll add this to the resources and I'll also be explaining about this later in the video on like when you can use this. So firstly, let me explain how ActiveCampaign works and their API, and then I'll come back to this. So if you want to use any other platform, you can feel free to do that. So I just recently worked on ActiveCampaign for a client who wanted to do the part on ActiveCampaign because he already has everything set up on that, so I used it. But yeah, it's totally up to you. And coming back to ActiveCampaign, so this is a demo account that I just created for the purpose of this video. So you can see that they've got contacts where you add the contacts, and they've got the email. Here's where we create the email campaigns. So firstly, this campaigns, here's where you could say create campaign. Under content, here's where you can, content and templates, here's where you can add those message templates, email templates, and so on. And here's message variables where you can add the variables, and then comes SMS. So I'd be explaining only emails right in this video, but it is going to be literally the same for SMS as well. Only a small change needs to be done. But apart from that, everything else is going to be almost the same. And then we got the SMS, WhatsApp, and automations. The main scope of this video is just going to be to create the campaigns. So since you've seen, this is how this works. So first, let me explain how you can get the API key. You gotta go to the settings at the bottom right here. You can see something called developer. So once you click on developer, you get the API key. So here's where you get the API key and the link that you'd be using to make the API request. And in settings here under developers, here's where you get your link and the API key. And apart from that, under advanced, so what you got to do is add like a custom domain. Like let's say you've got a business email or anything, you would need to put your domain, configure the DNS, and then add the DKIM, DMARC, and SPF records for it to add your email and use it for the outreach. But in this case, what I've done was, since this is just the account for the purpose of demonstration, so I've just used like a normal Gmail. And let's say you're using a normal Gmail, it would just ActiveCampaign would just assign some random domain from itself like this, and it would use this email for the purpose of outreach. So I've just used this in my case, but in your case, you got to add an actual domain. That is what is going to work, and that is what people are going to open and read. All right, so yeah, so this is it for this. So coming back to our make.com scenario, yeah, so here this is the text message that I use. So this is like an example text that I'd be using to create a campaign. And after that, let me go back. So this is to get the address. So this is not really required in the current scenario, but I'll be covering that. So right now, we're just basically trying to create a message and then add that message into a campaign and get the campaign running. So going back to the API documentation, so you can see that ActiveCampaign has different versions of the API. The V1 and the V3, I believe. So what you got to do as of now, at least as of now, I'm not sure when you'd be watching this video, the API version that works best is the V1. So please do stick with the API V1 version, which is this specific link. So if you try to go to Google and search for that, then it should appear in the second. Yeah, it is this one. So if you try to click the first one, it is going to open the V3, which isn't going to support this as of now. So it's better to stick with the API V1 for all of your needs. So let's say the V1 doesn't support anything. In that case, you could go to this latest document and check if the V3 supports anything that is missing in the V1. So that is it. And now let me go ahead and explain the V1 API. All right, so first we're gonna create a message. So let me scroll down, and I can see message. So you could do all these tasks over here. So to keep it simple, I'm just going to show you how to add a message, basically create a message. So over here, this is what I've used on make.com. So you can see that this documentation, this endpoint, so all of the endpoints are going to be pretty much similar. So you got to use this specific link along with the link that we just saw over here, which is this developer. Yeah, here it is, along with the link that we get here. So it's like you're gonna copy this, put it here, and go back. Oops. Yeah, here it is. So go back, copy this specific link. Okay, so this is gonna be the link that you'd be using to create the API request. So coming back here, you can see that this is the exact link that I've just used over here. So which is first use the URL that we get from the ActiveCampaign, and then we use this specific endpoint that we just saw in the documentation. So for the method, it is going to be post as written over here. And when it comes to supported output formats, ActiveCampaign's API, you can get the output format in either JSON or XML or serialized, but that's not important because we always mostly use only JSON. And after that, we got the authentication, which is of course true. So we could just come back here. And you can see for the headers, it is going to be API token, just exactly like this. And for the value, it is going to be the API key that you just copied from the developer section right here. This is going to be the API key. And then we got the application form data. So this is how the body type is going to be. So just as written here, you can see that it only requires for all the post requests that you're doing on ActiveCampaign, it requires the data to be sent as form data, not as a JSON body or any other format. So they've clearly mentioned that. And after that, we've got the API action, API output, and so on. So here I've added the API action, which is just one option, which is to message add, which is going to be exactly the same that is present over here. And after that, for the API output, like I said, we've only used JSON. So I'll put JSON right here. And after that, for the format, we could add the message in both text and HTML format. So adding HTML format gives you that flexibility to create in a good looking, feel good format, like using new lines, using bold text and so on. But if you want to keep things simple, you can just use like a text format. So if you're using text, you just got to mention that for the text format, you just got to mention that it is a text. So yeah, under format, you just got to say text. So, or else if you're using both HTML and text, you can use this one. And after that, for the subject, it is just going to be the subject of the email. So here you can see first name, about new product launch. So this is just like some random subject that I've added for demonstration. So this one right here is a placeholder that is used in ActiveCampaign to replace this with the actual first name of the contact. So yes, and after that, the from email. So I've used this one, but that I've used to create the account. But like I said, since it does not have like a very custom domain, it is just gonna use an address, an email with this domain. So yeah, so that is not important because in your case, you should be adding a custom domain over here. So in that case, you wouldn't face any problem. You can just put the from email. So let's say you've added 3 to 4 emails. You just got to select and specify from which email this is going to be sent out. And after that, the from name. So the email, it shows like the name of the sender basically. So here I've said John's AI agency. You can put in whatever name you want, and reply to. So what the reply to means is that once you send the email, and if the person wants to reply back, which email they want to reply back. Let's say you use a different email for sending and you want to use a different email for receiving. In that case, it is going to be different, but now it is just the same. But let's say another email saying John, let's say 22, let's say you want to receive in this another email. In that case, specifying this is going to help you. So once they reply, they're just going to automatically reply to this email only. And after that, the HTML content. So let's say if you're using a text, you just got to mention text here and put in the text content here. So since I'm using a HTML as the format shown here, so I'll be using the HTML format, which is just in the previous one. And last would be the list. So lists are basically like a list of specific contacts that you've created to send the email or messages. So let me delete this. So going back to ActiveCampaign, so let me go to contacts, and you could see here called lists. So there are two lists already here. So master SMS list and new list for testing. So you can add a list and create a new list. You can just add the website URL and just create a new list. So I've already have this list created, new list for testing, and I've just got my one email added into this. So now you've got to mention this message is meant for which specific list. So at the top, you can see here, it shows the list ID. Once you open that list, it shows the list ID right here, right? So you just got to use that ID for creating the message. Let me go back to list, and now let me open this one. Here it shows list ID is 2, you see? So you just got to take that ID and go to ActiveCampaign and just use that right here. So in our case, it would be 3, say 3. So that's it. So how the format is going to be is, let me go to the docs, and you can see assign to lists. So you just got to mention under this array. So let's say you're assigning it to multiple lists. In that case, you could just use the array format. So here's where you'd be adding the list. I believe it is not an array, but just a format. So you should be adding only one list right here, which you can just select which list you want to do and put that. So the value here, the value in the key, the number in the key, and in the value is just going to be the same. So let's say you're putting in for the list number 4, you just got to put the 4 same here. So that is the format has been used in the API. That has been given in the API docs of ActiveCampaign. And after that, once we do that, the message is going to get created, right? So once we do that, the message is created, and after that, we're just adding like a time delay, like maybe 3 seconds should work. Well, the reason for time delay is just that we just made a request to create a message, so we're just giving it like a few seconds to create that message and propagate it in its server. And after that, we wait a while, and then we create the campaign. So creating the campaign, like I said to you, it is going to be something that is similar to this specific thing. So now, since I've explained this, I think creating the campaign is going to be pretty much the same. So now I go to the main page. Now I can scroll down, and you could see that create campaign. So again, it is a post request. It is going to be the same. Again, it is going to be a form data. And after that, everything else is kind of just the same. So coming back here, coming back here, you can see the type as single. So for ActiveCampaign, so there's different type of campaigns. So it is single, recurring, split, responder, reminder, activers, test, and everything. We use a single, but you can feel free to explore the other type of campaigns. So yeah, so I use single, and after that, coming back, and what is the name of the campaign that you'd like to give? So for now, I've just put nurture, and I've to just mention the date on when this campaign was created. I'll just format the date on month, and date. So this is the type, and after that, the name and the status. So you can see that the status has 2, which is example is if 0 means it is draft, if 1 means it is scheduled. So what I use is draft, so that we have a little bit of manual control before the campaign just starts and start sending out the emails. So it's always recommended to just use 0 and just look at the draft, and you could just hit the button and make the campaign run by yourself. But if you want it fully automated in a way that, everything is automated, sometimes, reminders or templated emails could be 100% automated, there's no need for manual review. In that case, you could just put this as. So now we've got the message ID. So you can see that M and the message ID we get from creating the message from the previous module right here. So we put that message here and we say 100. And again, when it comes to the list, on what list we're going to use to run the campaign, in that case, it is just gonna use that specific list in the campaign. So I'm going to run this and show you all for the demos. I'll say nurture, I'll say testing YouTube video. And the reason for this 100 right here, you see, is the 100 is always going to be fixed, which means that it is the percentage of contacts that is going to receive the email. So let's say that you want to reduce the percentage. You can do that. Why would you do that? You can just use 100%, right? So let's say you want to reduce this, you can do that, or else it is completely fine. So just leave it as 100%. So you can come back here and see, you can see that for the message ID. So you can see that it's clearly mentioned here that over here in the key, we use the message ID. In our case, we get it from the previous module where we create the message. Let's say in your case, if the message is static with a fixed message ID, you could just put in like the value of it. But in our case, we're just creating a new message every time. We're just mapping that data. And after that, you can see that is 100. And so you can see, and 100 is the percentage of contacts who should get this message, and used only in split test campaigns with winner scenario. In almost all cases, use 100 for the value. Cool. So we'd be using 100. And again, for the list, as said, it is the same. So we're just using the list with the value 3 that I just showed here. You can see this is the value with 3. All right, so now let me run it. So once when I run it, what is going to happen is, let me go to the email and go to campaigns. You could see that I've got 2 campaigns now. So now once when I run this scenario, it is going to create like a campaign with this title and the current month and date, which is going to be like, I guess, 07/06. So we've got a refreshed. There's 2 here. Now I'm going to come back, run this. Now let me come back here, refresh it, and we should see it appear over here. Alright, you could see that nurture testing YouTube video with the date has appeared over here. I think I've missed a bracket. Yep, I should have added another bracket. Now let me open this one, and you could see that the subject, we've added it exactly, and after that from name is added exactly, from email is added, and right now it clearly shows that, like I said before, it is going to be sending it from this specific email since I don't have any custom domain added. And the pre-header, so the pre-header is not supported on the V1 API. So for in this case is where we can use the V2 API to achieve that. So let me show you like a use case for that in a bit. So you can see that this is a system that was built for a client of mine, and what we do here is we just, you see, first we get the information from Notion, we get the data from Notion, format it using ChatGPT, and then we create the message and we add a sleeve. And once we create the message, then we use this specific module to make a call to the V3 endpoint. So we got to use the V3 endpoint, which is the latest, not the V1. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I said it right before, but we got to use the V3 to add the pre-headers. So for that, so since the ActiveCampaign has module within make.com, so I've just connected it directly within make.com, but you can also use the HTTP request as just shown over here. So now once I click on it, you can see that I've used the messages endpoint right here. So this specific module is supported only for V3 API. So let me go back. So this is the V3 API. So here what we've used is we've used the message. We got to go to message, and we've used the update a message endpoint using put request. So we use PUT. Here it is. Yeah, we used PUT as method, and the headers is going to be content type application JSON, and then we use this one, and this is going to be the updated pre-headers, new off-market products. So once we do that, we would get our message updated with a pre-header. And again, we wait for 6 seconds, and then we create a campaign. So if you do it in this method, you could add the pre-headers as shown over here. In our case, we didn't, but I just explained you exactly how you can do that. So you can just use like a HTTP request, and you just got to go to this specific documentation, which is the V3, to edit the message and add a pre-header into it. Once you do that, you would be good. So you just got to authenticate the API. So for that, you would need to go to authentication, and it just seems literally the same. Authenticate the API just like how it is shown over here. So the only change basically is going to be this specific link. So if you're just able to change this link with the V3 link, then it is going to work. Or else you can just go to ActiveCampaign, go to make.com, connect your ActiveCampaign, and then just use the exact method that I just showed you using make an API call right here, because since your ActiveCampaign is already connected, you don't have to authenticate it using the headers. So yeah, you can use this method or just use the HTTP request. So coming back to this one. So yeah, this is how you add the pre-headers, which we've not done now. And you could see that I've mentioned what list to send the email to. So I've mentioned a list called new list for testing. So I've mentioned clearly the link, the name is 3. So since in the previous request, I've mentioned that this is the list ID that needs to be used. I've said the list ID is 3, and it just took this specific list. So yeah, so you could also add like multiple lists. I'm not sure in case of V1, but using the V3, you can edit and add multiple lists. For that, you need to edit the campaign. So for that, let me search for campaigns and go to edit campaign. Under edit campaign, you can see here that we've got an array for list IDs. So you can just, let me see it, 1, 2, and you can see here the list ID is added. So you could try this with the V1, and if it doesn't work, then once you create the campaign, you can edit the campaign using this one, using this endpoint. You could just use this method POT with this specific endpoint to edit it, and you could just edit it with edit by adding the list IDs. So once you do that, you could just add multiple lists. Over here in this case, I've just added one list. So you can see there's only one email on that list, so it just shows calculate the recipients. It just shows one. So you can see selected, it is one. And after that, you can select the address. There's also an option to add the address within the create campaign option itself. So for that, you can come here. Yeah, so you can see address ID. So maybe I can add this here. I'll copy. And address ID, I could just say 0. So when I add 0, it is just gonna take the default address and put it over there. So since, like I said, the automation that I've built is just gonna create the draft, and a person is gonna read it and then just click it and send the email with just one click. So if you are doing it in like fully automated, in that case, you gotta mention the address, or else it is not gonna send it, like make it fully automated. So just make sure that you add the address ID if you're fully doing it. If you just got one address for everything, you could just mention address ID and put it as 0. All right, or else making it things simple. That's why I've used this module here to get the address. So you can just get the address by using this endpoint here. This is also available in the V1. So if you were to go here and search for address, you can see address list. I've used this address list right here. So we just got to use a get request API token and use the API key, and I'll say run once, and it is just gonna show the list of address that is just present. So I've just got one address and it shows the ID is 1. So you just got to take that one address and just enter the ID for it. Okay, so coming back here. So now if you use 0, it is still going to take the same address because it is default. If you use 1, it is going to take the same address because that is the only address that is present. So I hope that makes sense. So this is how you assign address. It's as simple as that. So going back to our campaign here. So I've selected everything here, and campaign archive is something. You can just decide whether you want it to be public or private. So now I've set this up, and I'm just going to say send now. So once I send now, so right now, let me go to contacts. So this is the list that I just sent, new list for testing. And this is the only email that I've sent the campaign to. So in that, now I should have received an email to this inbox once the campaign is finished with the content that we just ran. So let me try to open my inbox. Okay, so I've finally received the email. So you can see here, it has replaced the first name with my actual name here called Sanjit. And after that, even in the subject, you can see that Sanjit about new product launch. This is what I've added in as a text while creating the campaign, while creating the message and then adding it to campaign. So this one comes from the message, this and all this. This is just like a demo text that I've used. So now you can, so this is for the first name. So let's say that, for example, you want to use, let me say create a campaign. Yep, so let's say you want to use any other dynamic variables, you can just select here. So let's say you want to add last name, you could just select, save, it would add the last name. And similarly, you could just search for like whatever you want, the job title, the email address, anything that you've added regarding that specific contact. So when you're adding the contact, it would ask, some of the information about them, and whatever you give, you could just dynamically map that here. So at the last, I had to go and click that button and make it to just fire and send the emails one by one. But if you want to if it wanted fully automated, like I said, you just got to keep the status as 1. So while you're creating the campaign, you could just put the status to 1 and it would just get scheduled. So that is it about the API. And now coming back to the use case. So over here you can see that new product or service launch announcement. So you could have like a list of products in your database, and let's say like whenever a new tag is added called as new launch, or whenever a status is new, in that case you could just set up an automation to take every single week or even every single day from the database and take the newly added products, create an email, and after that send it to ActiveCampaign and send out all the emails to your potential customers. So this is how this works. So this is one thing, and then abandoned cart follow-up. So let's say you've got like a list of clients or customers. You could use that same method to do this one. So all these are just the examples and use case on how you can use them. And yeah, so let me show you one client case study of what I've done. So I think I've showed it before. So it's like we watch the Notion data with the Notion database with the information about the products that are currently in the market. So we take those information and then we just aggregate it, all of it. And once we aggregate that into in a text, then we send to ChatGPT to just create the HTML format, and ChatGPT just gives like a HTML format with all of the products included. And after that we create the message. So once we create the message, then we wait, and this one is for adding the pre-header text. So we add the pre-header using the B3 API, and then we just create the campaign. And after that, what the company members would do is they would just go review the campaign to just see and just click the button, just fire it. It would just start running. As simple as that. This is one of the use case, and this could be like used in n number of ways. So I just did this project, and I did have some hurdles with this, with this specific API of ActiveCampaign. So that's why I thought I'd make a video. If someone is creating it, this might be definitely helpful, although I'm very aware that I'm not going to get even 1,000 views for this video, I guess. But yeah, it is totally fine. So I hope that you find this helpful. So this is all I gotta say. So I think there's no need for me to explain every single thing over here. I'll add this in the resource along with the resources that I'll be giving. So all this specific resource, you'd be getting them for completely free. So just make sure to check the description to receive them. And thank you so much for taking your time and checking into this. So please do let me know if you've got any doubts or any problems that you face. You could just put it down in the comments, or just connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message about the problem that you're facing. I'll try my best to reply to all of the comments and DMs that I get. So thank you once again, and cheers.